Ready for prayers?
Yes, please. Yeah. Put that on. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits from giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits from giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits from giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I bow down to my perfect gurus, the essential meaning of the victorious one's teachings, the path praised by all the holy victorious ones and their sons, the gateway of the fortunate ones desiring liberation. This I shall try to explain as much as I can. Those who are not attached to the pleasures of circling, who strive to make freedoms and endowments meaningful, who entrust themselves to the path pleasing the victorious ones, you fortunate ones, listen with a calm mind. Without the complete intention definitely to be free from circling, there is no way to pacify attachment seeking pleasurable effects in the ocean of circling. Also, by craving for psychic existence, embodied beings are continuously bound. Therefore, at the very beginning, seek renunciation. Freedoms and endowments are difficult to find, and life has no time to spare. By gaining familiarity with this, attraction to the appearances of this life is reversed. By thinking over and over again that actions and their effects are unbetraying and repeatedly contemplating the miseries of cyclic existence, attraction to the appearances of future lives is reversed. When by having trained in that way there is no arising even for a second of attraction to the perfections of psychic existence, and all day and night the intention seeking liberation arises, then the thought of renunciation has been generated. Even if renunciation has been developed, if it is not possessed by the mind of enlightenment, it does not become the cause of the perfect bliss of unsurpassed enlightenment. Therefore, the wise generate the supreme mind of enlightenment. Swept away by the current of the four powerful rivers, tied by the tight bonds of karma so hard to undo, caught in the iron net of self-grasping, completely enveloped by the total darkness of ignorance, endlessly reborn in psychic existence, ceaselessly tormented by the three sufferings, thinking that all mothers are in such a condition, generate the supreme mind of enlightenment. In short, if like the mother whose cherished son has fallen into a pit of fire, and who experiences even 1 second of his suffering as an unbearable eternity, your reflection on the suffering of all mother sentient beings has made it impossible for you to bear their suffering for even 1 second, and the wish seeking enlightenment for their sake arises without effort, then you have realized the supreme precious mind of enlightenment. Without the wisdom realizing ultimate reality, even though you have generated renunciation and the mind of enlightenment, you cannot cut the root cause of circling. Therefore, attempt the method to realize dependent arising. One who sees the cause and effect of all phenomena of both psychic existence and the state beyond sorrow as forever unbetraying and for whom any object trusted in by the grasping mind has completely disappeared, has at that time entered the path pleasing the Buddhas. If the appearance that is unbetraying dependent relation is accepted separately from emptiness, as long as these two understandings are seen as separate, then one has still not realized the Buddha's intent. If these two realizations are happening simultaneously without alternation, and from merely seeing dependent relation as completely unbetraying, the definite ascertainment comes that completely destroys the way all objects are apprehended. At that time, the analysis of the ultimate view is complete. Furthermore, appearance eliminates the extreme of existence, and emptiness eliminates the extreme of non-existence. If you realize how emptiness manifests in the manner of cause and effect, then you are not captivated by wrong notions holding extreme views. In this way, you realize exactly the vital points of the three principal aspects of the path. Resort to seeking solitude, generate the power of effort, and quickly accomplish your final goal, my child. I recently saw something that was sent to me as an extract from a teaching by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Actually, it must have been at a long life puja. You could tell from the way he was speaking. So he said, just reciting the words, just going through the ritual, might have some slight benefit. But what would really, the real long life puja for your guru is, I mean, in his case, but I think in any of our teachers, I should think, is practicing bodhicitta and emptiness. So, of course, that means you're learning about it, coming to understand it, and then really trying your best to really get some experience and then build on that experience. So His Holiness always, mostly anyway, refers to bodhicitta as, he uses this expression, tapeshin janjuksem, bodhicitta, which cherishes others more than oneself. It's not so easy in a way. It's quite difficult. Really, I mean, of course we have to keep trying. In the beginning, it starts off as a nice idea and then bringing it down into the heart. I think, for sure we can do it. It takes time, it takes effort. But, so when you talk about cherishing others more than oneself, so you have the idea of cherishing others, cherishing oneself. So cherishing others more than you cherish yourself. Caring for others more than you care for yourself. In some ways that might not sound like it makes sense. But I do think, in the mind training teachings, which I'm sure everybody here has heard about, the mind training, like the 7-point mind training, 8-verse mind training, that kind of thing, where you have this, emphasis on overcoming self-cherishing, which is kind of a very selfish mind, selfish attitude. Of course, when you first hear about it, you think, I'm not selfish. But in any case, in those mind training teachings, like in the Lama Chupa, if you've paid attention to the stage of the paths, part of the Lama Chupa, then it mentions placing all the can't remember the whole verse now, but anyway, putting all of the blame on that one thing, which is one's own selfish mind. And I think it's true, actually. I think that when you are able to do that, it's going to actually be an incredible relief. Incredible relief. I think it would really make your mind so relaxed, so open, because typically what we sentient beings do is blame everybody else. So you instead of putting the blame on that one self-cherishing mind, you put the blame on everybody else. We put the blame on everybody else. And that's why we get annoyed with people. And we can get quite bitter. We can become very bitter, actually, blaming others for our difficulties. Sometimes it's just, what do you call it? Selfishness, kind of like immature expectation that everything's going to be perfect all the time. That's what brings so much unhappiness. That's what makes the problem that you're blaming on other people seem so much worse. It could be quite a small thing. Of course, there can be huge things like being, I don't know, somebody cheats you out of your home, your job, your freedom, of course there are those things, but very often it's just small things that we make a big thing about. They talk about snowflakes, right? So I think this snowflake might be new language, but it's not a new thing. The snowflake attitude, in other words, like just the tiniest thing, and one is upset and outraged and blaming other people. And it makes you so kind of like, it actually makes you so unhappy. You might not even realize it, but when you're blaming others and getting upset with others, what you're doing is you're making yourself unhappy. You're stopping yourself from experience some kind of, peace. Make yourself unhappy. And I think that when you can see that actually whatever other people might do, the real source of feeling upset and hurt and that anger kind of thing, it's right there inside oneself. So you can call it ego, you can call it self-cherishing mind. Self-cherishing mind is a bit of it's a term you can get used to, but if you talk to just ordinary people, they wouldn't know what you're talking about. Just like we didn't know until it was explained to us. Somehow it's kind of like just selfishness, ego. When you realize that it's just your own ego, your own selfishness, just that is very liberating, I think. you might think it would be easier to realize that it really is, just as you've always believed, it really is everybody else. I don't know what it's like with people going. People go when you go to work in in the States, but I mean, I haven't done that kind of job much in my life because I've been most of my life in as a monk. Spent most of my life as a monk, adult life. But the little I can remember one of the things he would say. He'd say, how you doing? How's it going? And the answer, the stock answer would be, I'm all right. It's the others. It's the others. So, it just feels so natural to blame everything on others. Everything is because of others, and it's so frustrating. And there's just no end to it. Almost drive you crazy. But to realize, actually, it's my own selfish mind, my own sort of obsession with myself. That's what's the problem. So people have said something that you got upset about, and they've done something you got upset about, and so you feel like it's them, but actually, when you realize it's yourself, then it's just that is liberating, even without actually having overcome and like uprooted and transformed things so much that you're completely beyond self-cherishing. Just realizing that I think it's very liberating. Because who wants to dislike people? When everybody else is to blame, then you have so many people to dislike. And then you can't do anything about it. People, of course, think they can. Just go to war, destroy them, kill them all, nuke them or whatever, at an extreme. But here's just this one thing, your own selfishness. And you can do something about that. You really can. Anyway, so let's spend, I don't know, a few minutes thinking about that, and then, starting there, try to develop that bodhicitta which cherishes others more than oneself. So then if we spend a few minutes thinking about emptiness, anyway, something that's helpful, related. So we have a tendency to think that however we perceive things is sort of like passive. Perception is passive. The way you see things is passive. In other words, I mean, you might not say, "Oh, I'm seeing things as they really are," and so on. But we kind of tend to think that we're just seeing what's there. When you see something, you're seeing what's there. You know what I mean? We're just seeing what's there. It's not the way it's appearing it's got nothing to do with my mind. I can make what I like of what's appearing, but anyway, what's appearing is just what's there. However, let's just think about this for a few minutes. If the way things appear to me has got nothing to do with my own mind, it's just the way they are, then we would all perceive everything exactly the same way. And is that true? Like, for example, you think something's beautiful, so everybody would think it's beautiful. You think something is good, everybody would think it's good. You think something's bad, everybody that ever sees that, hears it, touches it, whatever, would think it's good. Right, so in the book, page 59. So you might remember that earlier on in the text, there were these four main points. The fourth one was how the teacher would guide the student along the path through the actual practice. So for that one, you had the first thing was how to relate to spiritual guide, and then based on that, in that context, then the stage of path that you need to go through. And for that, starts off with, according to the chapter title, it's the freedoms and endowments of this life. So, as you can see, the way that first heading, or the one under the main heading, stage of training mind. Once you have relied on a teaching, once you've relied on a teacher, not in the sense that first you rely on a teacher, and then once you've done that, then you go on to these other things. No, it's not like that. It's always the one reason they say that the text, the teaching is structured in the way it is. Two things. There's the way to rely upon the spiritual guide, on teacher, as he says, the guru, and the other one is the stage of the path to train your mind in, is because they go together all the way along the path, all the way up to enlightenment. And it's fairly obvious, isn't it? Because as you're going along, you need clarification, you need instruction, and so on. And also, those things about having a very positive attitude or perception of your teacher, and then always having that feeling of gratitude because of the kindness. You would need that all the way along the path. So anyways, the first thing, so it says there are two things. One is an exhortation to take the essence of this life endowed with freedom. In other words, this human life that we have at the moment, this is there are things here that when you think about them, they make you really feel like doing something worthwhile with your life. You feel like you have something precious and you don't want to waste it. Then the second is the way to take its essence. So, how are you going to do something worthwhile? What is it that you can do to make it really worthwhile having, come to this life? To make it worthwhile having, worked hard to get this life, and then, now what are you going to do with it? So first it talks about their freedoms and endowments, then contemplating their value and contemplating the difficulty in finding them. So this is all on page 59, right? So we say, well, when I was new to Buddhism, everybody called it the perfect human rebirth. The perfect human rebirth. And the Tibetans do have, in Tibetan, in other words, you do have a similar expression, Milu Rinpoche. So the Milu Rinpoche, precious human body, literally, the precious human body. But anyway, so mostly they refer to as Denjor, which means that Del in Denjor is like freedom, and Jor is like endowment, as he says. Richnesses, this means wealth, richness, endowment. Okay, so and there are 18 of them, as we see. 18 of these freedoms and endowments, and Lama Tsongkhapa goes through them. And so, so you're going to be thinking about what these 18 are, so you know what they are, and you know that, oh yeah, in my life here right now, I have these 18 attributes, qualities, and then thinking about the amazing things you can do because you have these 18, these leisures and endowments, freedoms and endowments. I think he's calling it freedom because it's freedom from certain really difficult conditions that we could have had, but we don't have. Otherwise, very often they're called the leisure because it's like the leisure because of not having that thing that means you just don't have the opportunity. 8 things where you just have no opportunity, but now you don't have those things, so you have this kind of like leisure. And I think even sometimes they call them the opportunities and endowments, something like that. But anyway, whatever. So it says contemplating the difficulty in finding them. So the thing is, what it comes down to, identifying the freedoms and endowments. So it's like we have this incredible thing, in our hands. But sometimes you can have something very precious and very valuable without even knowing it. So the idea of meditating on recognizing and then meditating, not just identifying, of course, not just like just knowing, but knowing what these 18 are, knowing that you have them, you have these 8 freedoms, you have these 10 endowments, and just feeling with each one of them kind of overjoyed because you're thinking, wow, if it was like this, then it would be impossible for me to practice. But it's not like that. How amazing is that it's not like that? How incredible that is! How wonderful, how amazing, So I think I might have mentioned last week. They say it's like a pauper finding suddenly that they have this like I don't know, like a very precious jewel that they'll be able to use to solve all of their problems of poverty, and how overjoyed they would feel. So it's like each one of these 18 is just such a jewel. Mm. In a way, that one's a very good analogy because they had no idea, and then suddenly they come across it. Because of course, when something more part of our lives, like a lottery ticket. The thing is, when you buy the lottery ticket, I mean, you don't just find a lottery ticket, right? You don't just sort of like look. Well, maybe you would, but anyway, generally speaking, you don't just find one. You have to buy one. So you have to buy one like maybe on the day or a few days. I used to buy lottery tickets, and then I stopped. In one way, that is good because you could win. It's always possible. If you don't buy one, you're not going to win, right? If you buy one, you could possibly win. Although they say you're more likely to be struck down dead by lightning than to win a lottery ticket. But I mean, you still could. People do. People do get struck down by lightning, don't they? But I used to find, it's like from the day that I bought the ticket until the day of the draw, which was always a big disappointment, of course. Yes, I would worry about what I was going to do if I won. And the reason I would worry is because, of course, like if it was something like, I don't know, like even just suppose, I don't know, like $50 million. So, I would be okay with some of that. I'd be perfectly comfortable with some of that. But what would I do with the rest? And, you find even though you haven't won, the idea of giving some away is like, oh, no, I don't think I can do that. Or who? Who am I going to give it to? All that kind of thing. So all the worry. So it's not worth it. But I think it's still worth it. So anyway, yeah. So I don't know. I think it might be quite good to it might be good. Maybe the comparison would be like you had absolutely no idea that there could possibly be somebody that's, for whatever reason, they could be just a distant aunt or something or other that's got like leaves you $50 million. Now that would be unexpected, wouldn't it? So, but anyway, so wow, $50 million. But also for us, it's not such a good analogy because we all have somewhere to live. I mean, we're not like living out in the streets and so on. None of you looks like you're living out on the street. No, I don't think so. But anyway, you get the idea. So that's the analogy: somebody who's completely penniless, and then discover a jewel. So each one of those is like discovering a jewel. So then, what can you do with it? So then it's just amazing what you can do, because of course, you can at least take steps towards achieving enlightenment or just your own personal liberation. You can do all sorts of things. But then, the difficulty in finding them, and in other words, the difficulty in getting another life like this. The point of that is so that you don't just think to yourself, well, I've got this opportunity, but so it's very nice, and I'm not going to completely waste it, but there's always future lives. Just keep going, life after life. But actually, it doesn't happen automatically like that. You have to work hard to make it happen again. Of course, it's all in the mind. If you can see the purpose and you really want to, then you can do it. It's easy. If you don't really want to, then it's more difficult. So first of all, it talks about the freedoms and then the endowments. So the verse summary of the perfection of wisdom says, so this is a passage from a sutra that shows what this word freedom means in this context, or freedoms. Through ethical discipline, the characteristics of the numerous animal births and the 8 unfree states are abandoned. Thus, you win constant freedom. So the idea is that this verse is meant to be showing us that when it says freedom, it means freedom from the 8 unfree states, and then he's going to go through what those 8 are. So the freedom, so freedom there's again this consists in. So freedom, anyway, freedom means freedom from the 8 unfree states. Then, so he starts going through them. So actually, with these 8, you've got 4 unfree states where you wouldn't be a human, and then 4, even if you're a human, you could have these unfree states. So first of all, he mentions the 4 as a human. So living in a remote and savage land. The basic point there is being born somewhere. It could be that the Buddha is actually there in the world, but you've been born in a part of the world where you don't even hear about that. So you don't hear the teaching, and so it's just, you have no freedom. So it's a funny word in a way to use. You'd have no freedom practice. You wouldn't have any freedom. You wouldn't have the freedom to practice if you never heard of it. So, no opportunity. You wouldn't have the opportunity, right? So maybe it's the, freedom from 8 states of no opportunity. You wouldn't have the opportunity to practice. So living in a remote savage land where the 4 types of followers of the Buddha do not go, where there aren't those 4 followers. Now I can't remember. I was going to look that up. I should know, but I think it might be like, anyway, the male and female monastics, male and female lay followers. I think it's probably that. Where there aren't any of them. Yeah. And then so that would be what they call a barbaric land where there's no Buddhist practice. I mean, there aren't any of the followers of the Buddha, so there aren't the Buddha's teachings. So you wouldn't have a chance. You'd have no chance. Being stupid or dumb. What this is talking about is mental faculties or physical faculties being impaired, and so big obstacle. Maybe not as much as an obstacle as in the past, the time of Buddha, but still quite a bit of an obstacle. Like if you can't see. So, there's a lot in Braille, but there's not as much in Braille as there is in ordinary print. Well, then, of course, there's also the talking books and so on, but still, being able to point your finger and look at it again and again, just listening, then it'd be like listening to a teaching where if you, like me, then, if you don't take notes, then, it's all gone 5 minutes after the teaching's finished. So anyway, it's obviously it's an obstacle, isn't it? And that would be the thing to think about, if I had been born with impaired faculties, like very low IQ, so just can't understand things, can't remember anything, could be worse than that. Can't see, can't hear, even not being able to walk, it'd be quite difficult, wouldn't it? Then the third one, holding wrong views that misconstrue. I'm not sure what he means by misconstrue here, but anyway, what it's talking about is having a strong belief that there's no such thing as past and future lives. There's no such thing as karma and its results. Whatever you do has no effect on what you're going to experience in the future. And then the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Buddha doesn't exist, Dharma doesn't exist, Sangha doesn't exist. So you don't believe in any of that. So of course that completely closes your mind. So you'd have no opportunity. Being born where no Buddha has appeared and therefore being bereft of his teaching. So I been born where there. Now, if you just say born where there is no Buddha, but when Buddha hasn't appeared, then it sounds like the first one, doesn't it? So this is maybe more like born at a time when the Buddha hasn't come into the world. So that would be almost the first one, wouldn't it? Does it work like that? So let's say, so you've been born at a time when the Buddha has appeared in the world, so you got the fourth one. But it could be that even though you've been born at such a time, but you have those misconceptions, so you just can't listen to the Buddha's teaching, so it still wouldn't work. But you could be without those misconceptions, but your faculties are impaired, so you either can't understand or they're not just available to you, the teachings, for some reason, so you don't have the opportunity, or that's okay. The Buddha did come into the world. You don't have these misconceptions. Your faculties are not impaired, but you've been born somewhere where you just never hear about it. So those four. The non-human unfree states are the three lower realms. So having been born as a hell being, a hungry ghost, an animal, and then that of a long-lived God, which we'll talk about in a moment. So the whole thing is, each one of these you go through, thinking how awful it would be if I were in that situation. So like really imagine yourself in that situation, see how you'd have no chance, And then again with these the three lower rounds. I mean, some people accept, some people don't. But anyway, this is the way it's taught in this text. So the hell being is the worst one, where you have like pain and suffering non-stop from beginning to end of the life. And so they often say, the lamas, when they're teaching about how to meditate on this, to get a sense of how you would have no chance of practicing, then thinking that like even if somebody accidentally touches you or on purpose touches you with a hot teaspoon, you can't stand it. You get maybe you get touched by a stick of incense, the end of a stick of incense or something. Oh, of course, picking up a hot pan or something like that. It's like with that pain, you just can't think. You just can't think. So there's no chance. You've got no chance to practice. Even if, I mean, you wouldn't even think about it. It's that bad, There's hungry ghosts. I mean, that one, so they live for maybe hundreds of years and nothing to eat, nothing to drink. So they spend their whole time hungry and thirsty and looking for something to eat, something to drink. And I mean, we all know what it's like to even go out without a meal, just one meal. I mean, it's difficult enough, isn't it? If you've done the Nyungne practice, going without food or drink, like for a whole day, nothing to eat, nothing to drink, and not even allowed to talk, so you can't even complain about it, right? Can't complain about it to anybody else. You just have to suffer in silence. So yeah, and then an animal. So animals, you see, the thing is, when we talk about the animals, the Tibetans, they just have this one word, so it's to draw. So actually, literally what that means, like they go bowed down. And most animals you can see, I mean, they go on four legs, so they're bowed down. They're not, they don't go standing up, stood up. Some of them, a little bit of an exception, like some of the monkeys, they go on two legs a lot of the time, but anyways, it's just the word they use anyway. They're not all the same way. I mean, not all the same way. But the thing is that animal, it includes what we call animals and probably a lot of things that we wouldn't normally call animals. So it includes fish for sure. It includes fish. Also includes all the insects. And then where it ends, of course, nobody can really say because like bacteria. I don't know. But anyway, so the difficulty in understanding things, real difficult to understand things. You might have a pet, right? You can talk about Dharma to all day long, and it'll just look at you and wag its tail. If you say it nicely, if you say it, fiercely, then it might cower a bit. But they just. I mean, you can talk about as much as you like about there can be a certain intelligence and sensitivity, but being able to understand how to make sure that you're born as a human being, life after this life, so that you'll be able to carry on practicing the path, achieve liberation, enlightenment, or maybe even achieving liberation, enlightenment this lifetime. It's beyond them, isn't it? I don't know I think well, they do say that there's one type of animal that's included in the category of animal anyway. It's called a naga, and so there are some of those. So they're I don't know, very much sort of like snake-like. Sometimes they can appear as a snake or in a sort of human form, so they say. But anyway, it seems that some of those can practice and visit on bodhicitta and so on, and maybe even certain types of hungry ghosts, because it's interesting actually, because hungry ghost again also like yidak. I don't know where the hungry ghost comes from, except for that's what I don't know why they're called ghosts even. I mean, it's a funny name really, because ghost usually is like the ghost of people that have passed away. It's nothing to do with that. Pretas maybe is better, the Sanskrit word. Anyway, so they, that's what they're known for, the suffering of hunger and thirst. But there are also some spirits which are very intelligent. I mean, spirits that are included in the category of a preta, that are very intelligent and can be very powerful, and they can do a lot of harm. They can also do a lot of good, but they can also do a lot of harm. So, but anyway, generally. So then for the long-lived gods, the commentary on the letter to a friend, so that's the one by Nagarjuna, so a commentary on that by I don't know who, discusses two types of, so literally is a god with a long life, right? The former abide in one region of the fourth dhyana, great result, as if in a hermitage far away from a village. And my teacher Gintecho, that's the one he always used to go. That's the one he always used to say. when it says long life gods, it means gods who. So anyway, you've got the desire realm, which we're part of, right? Then you also got form realms, the form realms and formless realms. Those are all gods. There are desire realm gods as well, but anyway, form realm gods, formless realm gods. And so the form realm there's got 4 levels. They call them the 4 dhyanas, or the four form realms, 4 samsuk, something she, sumishi. Yeah, 4 form realms. And so they're in the form realm there are 17 levels. So generally for each of the 4 levels there are 3, or maybe 17 categories. Maybe it's better, because anyway within each of the 4 form realms, which is called very boringly just the first form realm, second, third, and fourth. Anyway, so in the fourth, so each of the 4's got 3, plus in the 4th one there are an extra 5. So 4 3 is 12 plus 5 is 17, and those 5 are only I can't remember now. There's something special about them. I think they might be only Pure Lands or something. I can't remember. Sorry. But anyway, that 4th one in the third one in the 4th form realm is called the Great Result, and these long life gods that are being referred to here are part of that sort of category that's called the Great Result for whatever reason. I can't remember now. But anyway, and the main point is that they are, I think they're sometimes called cognitionless gods. But anyway, the main point is that, so they're born, when they're born, they know they've been born. Then they spend their whole life, like, I don't know if it's hundreds, thousands, millions of years or whatever, but anyway, just in meditation. Not meditating about something nice like bodhicitta, or meditating on emptiness, trying to understand something like that, but just in almost like falling asleep. So I'm sure it's very peaceful, right? But anyway, so they know they've been born, then they meditate, and then at the end of the meditation, they know they're going to die, and that's it. So no chance. There are certain desire realm gods who practice, but most of them, the pleasure that they experience is too distracting. So in fact, it says about that here. So then discourse on the 8 unfree states explains long-lived. Is it lived or lived? Long-lived. Anyway, gods to be gods of desire who are constantly distracted by activities of desire. So yeah, so they say it means that one. 2 types. So it could be, well, anyway, it would make sense that it refers to both of those. People. So the ones in the desire realm, there's so much pleasure, they're distracted by that. They can't, even if they heard about Dharma, they wouldn't be interested because they're just too absorbed in enjoying themselves. Now it's interesting, actually, isn't it? Because something I heard Amazon Rinpoche said recently, talking to a student about obstacles, and Rinpoche said, obstacles are the best puja. So you know what that means by puja, right? So puja, I think probably everybody in Tibetan Buddhism for sure knows all about pujas. Reciting words of a ritual. Either it could be Tara, it could be Chenrezi, it could be all sorts of possibilities. Anyway, doing these practices, sometimes quite complex. Usually we get the lamas to do them, or Tibetans that know how all these rituals work. And so when you have a problem, what happens? You have an obstacle, so then you go to the Lama, see what you should do, and then the Lama says, "Oh, you should do this puja and that puja and that puja," and supposedly that's going to help you, to overcome a problem, to become wealthy, or whatever it is you want. But anyway, so obstacles are the best puja. So the point is that you do pujas really so to help you progress along the path. That's what it comes down to. I mean, that's the best motivation, but see the motivation or whatever it is, kind of, to help you progress along the path. That's the point. That's the purpose. And they might work. That's great. If they work, that's great. But actually, the best puja is obstacles. So what does that mean? What that means is that since pujas are the point of the puja is to help you develop on the path. Best way to develop on the path is having obstacles. So that seems to be the opposite of what we're saying here, doesn't it? But the point is, I'm sure you must know from experience, when things are going very well, you're well, you've got friends, you've got nice place, you got, no money problems. It's quite easy to become complacent and a bit lazy with your practice. I mean, with practice. It's almost like practicing Dharma, whether it's studying or meditating, or whatever. It's almost as if it's a little bit removed from reality. It's almost like just a thing you're doing, and it's difficult to have so much energy for it. But when you've got a problem, then that really makes you face the need to do something with your mind and with your life and your lives. Because when a problem comes, it's a teacher. Of course, there are certain problems which don't teach you much because they just kill you. Like just getting suddenly killed in a car crash. That's an obstacle. It's also not a very helpful one. But there are certain there are the difficulties where you just you generally speaking, like Lama Zopa says so much in his Transforming Problems book, it makes you think about karma. This happened to me because of karma, and I really don't like this, and therefore I have to make sure I purify the other karma that I have to suffer like this and maybe worse, and to make sure to create the karma for good things to happen. It makes your refuge stronger, because it's like, what's refuge for? They talk about the refuge being because you think about the suffering of the lower realms and of cyclic existence in general. You think about the suffering of others, and this is really making you think of the suffering of others, and think, because it also brings up the thoughts of compassion. I mean, this is the way to use it anyway. It's obviously not everybody that has an obstacle is going to be able to use it, but if you think about it, you can use the situation, and it's very powerful. Actually, it definitely is very powerful. It's also not very nice at all. Having problems is not nice at all, but from the point of view of your Dharma practice, it's really quite amazing. So it makes you think about it gives you a stronger insight into the suffering nature of psychic existence. It makes you think about karma. It makes you think about compassion. It makes you think about refuge, because going for refuge is to help with to overcome suffering, the suffering oneself and all others, definitively. And when things are going well, you just don't feel like it's like samsara is suffering so much. It's not easy to. It's not so easy. And also, like I was saying, when when the suffering is going on and you realize, oh, actually the problem is because of my self-cherishing, in terms of like, why did I create the karma for this to happen? Self-cherishing mind. Why is it such a difficult thing for me to deal with? My self-cherishing mind. You think like that. So it's an amazing opportunity, actually, if you think about it. I mean, nobody wants obstacles, but actually we should want obstacles, because they really do help. Anyway, you see what I mean? Yeah, so it makes sense that, if you desire around God, then life is so nice. So then the endowments. How are we doing? Oh, that's good. Endowments. So anyway, wait till we get to the end of these ones. The endowments. So this has got 2 points. So you get those 8 freedoms anyway. Okay, so for non-human, for human, for non-human. The 4 non-human being 3 of the lower realms, and then 1 where you're some kind of God where you're either completely absorbed in concentration, so no opportunity, your concentration gives you no opportunity to practice, or just being having too much pleasure, so it puts you off, distracts you. Then the endowments. So this has 2 points. So you've got the 5 endowments pertaining to oneself, and then the 5 pertaining to others. Ranjonga, Shinjonga. So apparently this is from the Shravaka levels, not the hero levels. This was by Asanga. So he Nyansa, Changsa. So the Bodhisattva levels, Nyansa, Changsa. There's another one. No, Jupiter. I can't remember. But so he's the one that went to practice Maitreya, and then eventually saw Maitreya after many years of retreat and many years of disappointment. Eventually saw Maitreya because of his compassion that purified his mind, so he could see Maitreya. Maitreya took him to, I think, must have been Tushita, not Tushita Dharamsala, Tushita in the God realm, and then taught him, and then sent him back with these 5 treatises that he had composed, like the one that you might have heard mostly could be the Uttara Tantra, the further everlasting continuum, which is about mainly, main thing really it's about is the Buddha potential, and Yumikizum Shilo Sanjamba is teaching it once a month at Sejinling. So anyway, so then he not only brought those texts back, but then he also composed lots of interesting commentaries, Shravaka levels anyway. So in there it says being human, so we should be able to get 5 out of this. Being human, born somewhere central, so the born somewhere central would, anyway, the commentary is just below, so I don't need to say. Then with unimpaired faculties, then no inexpiable heinous actions, and faith in the soul. So let's see what Lama Tsongkhap says about those. So being human, obviously that doesn't need any explanation. Born somewhere central, being born in a central land. So it's to be born in a place where the 4 types of followers are active, where there are those 4 types of followers as mentioned before. So what I think, but I'm not 100% sure, is that the male and female sangha, in other words, male and female monastics, and then male and female lay followers, where they're, this is Yua in the Tibetan, so it's like where they're there, they're present, they're then unimpaired faculties, so that's the same as before, consists of not being, in other words, means not being stupid or dumb. So in other words, and having fully functioning body, parts, eyes, ears, and so on. So it's exactly the same as the one before. Then no inexpiable heinous actions imply that means not having committed or caused others to commit an uninterrupted action. An uninterrupted action, that would be killing one's father, killing one's mother, killing an arhat, causing a split in the sangha, and then the sangha community, monastic community, and then intentionally, maliciously causing injuring a Buddha so that they bleed. So those are called, what does it say here? Uninterrupted. Uninterrupted because, so some people misunderstand it to mean that having done one of those and not having purified it, I mean, of course, if you purify, it's a different thing altogether. Not purified it, that means you go straight to the hell realms and, nothing, immediately, but that's not true because you always have the intermediate state. So anyway, that's what it means anyway, uninterrupted. It means that whatever other karma you have, if you've created that karma, then it sort of trumps all the other ones. So you automatically go to the hell realms, uninterrupted. Then faith in the source. So this is very useful. Faith in the source is to have faith in the foundation from which all the mundane and supermundane virtuous dharmas arise. The supermundane would be mainly Buddhahood, but also, you're becoming an arhat, I think. And then mundane would be all the other good things. So that's discipline. So we talk about the three baskets of the Buddha's teachings, the morality or ethics. So I think he's calling it discipline here. Then the sutra set of the Buddha's teachings, and then the Abhidharma or knowledge set of the Buddha's teachings. So it means discipline, but here discipline should be understood to encompass all three baskets of the scripture. In other words, faith in the source means faith in the Buddha's teachings, having faith in the Buddha's teachings. Meditating on them. It's very similar to the ones before, because it's still the same basic idea that you're making this comparison between having it. Now you do have this these five. Imagine what it would be like if you didn't have them. So it's not just like, oh, I've got this this first one, that's really fantastic. I've got the second one, that's really fantastic. It also involves understanding, if I didn't have it, how difficult things would be. So how amazing that I have it. Just like finding a precious jewel, a priceless diamond, or whatever. So as those five are brought together in one's own mind stream and are circumstances for the accomplishment or the practice of the Dharma, they are called endowments pertaining to oneself. So when we compare these five to the next five, then it's more obvious that you can why you would say, what's it called again? Pertaining to oneself, as opposed to pertaining to others. Then so they're included in one's own mind stream, not necessarily mind stream, your own continuum. They're part of you anyway. They're part of you. There's something about yourself, not just the situation that you're in, but about yourself. So they're called endowments pertaining to oneself. The five endowments pertain to others. So this is also in the Shravaka levels. So there, Asanga says, the Buddha has come and taught the holy Dharma. Okay, so that's two of them. The Buddha has come and also taught the holy Dharma. The teachings still remain and are being followed. There's loving kindness, so that's the fourth one, and then there's loving kindness and compassion for the sake of others. So, well, let's read the Lama Tsongkhapa's explanation. But I just want to say, where it says are being followed, according to every explanation of this that I've heard, it means you yourself are following. And what's important about that is that you might think Well, I thought that before there was 5 about yourself, and now these are 5 about the conditions you find yourself in. So why could that mean that it must mean that there are other people following those teachings, because this is others, but it's not like that. It's yourself, and it's there because it fits there, even though it's not from others. It's you, but it fits there. So like the Buddha's there, not just there in the world, but is teaching, not just teaching, but there are people that are that the teachings still remain. I think we're going to see from the explanation is to do with that there are people still practicing, that there are still people practicing those teachings, and you yourself are following those teachings. And not only that, but then from others, you're being cared for. You have, I mean, depending upon your situation, but you somehow, whether you're a monastic that's being supported by the community, or whether you're a lay person who has to go out to work or whatever. Anyway, you have a place to live, and you have the food, and you have everything you need. And if you really think about it, that comes from others. It all comes from others, right? So anyway, here the Buddha has come or arisen. So anyway, the Buddha has come into the world, means that after having accumulated the collections of merit and wisdom for 3 countless great eons, he manifestly attained complete Buddhahood. So it's quite nice, really. Anyway, it's quite interesting. So the point he's making is that the Buddha has come, and it's quite important to understand that that means the Buddha has come. The Buddha is in the world, because I tell you what, I don't think all teachers explain this in the same way. I mean, I definitely when I first listened to Western teachers explaining this, they explained it as Buddha came into the world, right? Not the Buddha has come into the world. That's funny, your camera keeps moving. It's funny. No, it's all right. It's all right. It's like somebody's kind of like, okay, now let's pan out. Let's have a look over here a bit. It's all right. Don't worry. Yeah, so really don't worry. But I shouldn't have said anything, but anyway, I just noticed. But it does look like that. It's like, okay, now over here, now let's go back again. Like you've got a producer there or something.
Yeah, it's just so, it's like another person or weird hungry ghost or something, it's just like, let's make gingerbread cookies.
All right. Anyway, don't worry. Yes, so anyway, long story short, there's one teaching that says even Nagarjuna didn't have all 10 of these, and specifically with these 5 didn't have all 5 of them, because the point is that what this really means is the Buddha has come into the world and is there. Isn't just there, but is also teaching and so forth. And so that's why those same teachers who explain it in this way, they will tell you, so even though we don't have that first one, we have the equivalent, which is we've got people like His Holiness the Dalai Lama in the world and so forth. So you can see, he's not teaching, but His Holiness the Dalai Lama is teaching, Kabbalah Rinpoche is teaching, and so forth. So it's kind of like the same. It's kind of like the same. Yeah. So the Buddha has come or risen means that after having accumulated, so that is talking about, how that, so that, like they often say, the Buddha first of all generated bodhicitta, then for 3 countless great eons, accumulated merit and wisdom, and at the end achieved enlightenment. And according to the ordinary view, where did he achieve enlightenment? In this world, about 2,600 or so years ago. So then taught the Holy Dharma means that the Buddha or his disciples have taught. So you see, the translator has gone for past tense, but actually it should be are teaching the Dharma. And his disciples, anyway, I think that's okay. Then the teachings survive means that so the teachings are still there. That's funny though. Let's come and talk the Holy Ghost. You still remain. Actually, maybe I can't remember that. Maybe the Tibetan is also different, but it's funny because he's got it in quotation marks, which should mean that it comes from that quote from the Shravaka levels, but actually it doesn't say that in the Shravaka levels. It's different. Still remain, it says. I mean, meaning is okay, of course, but I'm just saying it's not a very accurate quote. The teaching survive means that from the Buddha coming and teaching the Dharma up to the moment of passing into nirvana, the Dharma attained through seeing the ultimate Dharma has not degenerated. So I couldn't figure that one out really. So this is maybe a different way of putting it. The Dharma practiced in the manner of manifesting ultimate Dharma, which would mean like actually getting an insight into emptiness, has not degenerated from achieving enlightenment up to up to entering into nirvana. In other words, passing away. So it's talking about, like I said, the teachings are still there, means that they're still being practiced. They're still being practiced. So read that again. So the teachings survive means that from the Buddha coming and teaching the Dharma up to the moment of passing into nirvana, the Dharma attained through seeing the ultimate Dharma. The ultimate Dharma, in emptiness, has not degenerated. Okay. So then the teachings survive and are being followed means that through the very realization of the Dharma, there are those who seek that beings have the power to directly perceive the holy Dharma, and who then follow the teachings in accordance with that realization. What I think that means, you see, is that so you're in the world at the time when the Buddha is there teaching, and there are people who are achieving the results in their practice through practicing, what the Buddha taught. You see that, and that inspires you to practice. So you enter into it. So where it says, are being followed, you're following it, inspired by their example. Then there is loving kindness and compassion for the sake of others, means that there are donors and benefactors who provide monastic robes and the like, which wouldn't be very useful for most of you. In fact, all of you, maybe just me. But anyway, you have everything you need for your practice. That's the point. As these five are present in the mind streams of others and constitute conditions for accomplishing the Dharma, they are called endowments pertaining to others. And so you get the idea, don't you? You've got to, understand what these 10 are. And in fact, you've got 8 plus 10, you've got these 18. Then Joshokye, the 18 leisures or freedoms and endowments, freedoms and richnesses. And so with each one of them, you're thinking how amazing it is. It is. I have this. If I didn't, it would just be impossible. What could I do? What would become of me? How would it be? But actually, I do. I don't have that difficulty. I have this thing going in my life, this attribute, this quality of my life. How amazing it is! And each time, just you need to make your own mind very joyful about this. And it's interesting because if you meditate on this first thing in the morning properly, it's important to have a happy mind, and this would help you to have a happy mind. A mind which is depressed is not so easy to practice. Of course, that can be part of your mind training and the Donglen taking and giving, but I don't know. Anyway, it's good in many ways to be sort of like cheerful and happy, and positive, and so thinking like that can very helpful. So yeah, okay. So then going on to contemplating their great value. Let's see how much time we've got left. A couple of minutes. Well, let's just read to the bottom of the page. We can go through it again. See what it says. If you engage in no practice of pure Dharma at all for the sake of lasting happiness, but strive your entire life merely to eliminate your suffering and attain happiness, then you're like an animal despite your fortunate rebirth, since animals do the same, and sometimes they do even better. But I don't know. Animal life. But still, anyway, you get the point he's making. Even though you have this human life, not using it for something beyond just this short life, and only think about just this short life, no matter how sophisticated it might seem in comparison with animals, actually you're doing the same as an animal. And this isn't being judgmental about animals, but animals, if they can't do something beyond just this life, then it's not surprising. I mean, there's a really unfortunate situation. But for us, with the possibilities we have, to just think about the short-term pleasures of this life, even if you don't think about future lives and liberation and enlightenment, but at least thinking about others, thinking about your community, thinking about the world, future generations. I mean, you can bet there are many people that are real activists and very dedicated to whatever it might be, whether it's to eliminate fossil fuels or whether it's to, all those things. They might not be thinking about future lives and liberation and enlightenment. Probably not many of them are, but they're not. What they're doing is not something selfish. They're thinking about the world and the future of this world. Yeah. So at least that. So you need a physical basis like the one described above, with those 18 attributes, in order to practice the Mahayana path. Letter to a friend, to a student, Sishaleka. That might be. I'm not sure who that is. I don't think that's Nagarjuna. That's letter to a friend. Might be Chandragomin or something. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, the base of the path of those gone to bliss, the tool for leading beings, is that most powerful mind, bodhicitta, which is gained by human beings. That path is not found by gods or nagas, nor by asuras, nor by garudas, knowledge holders, kinnaras, or uragas. These are all sorts of non-humans, right? So in other words, I mean, what else could this be saying? Then now we have these 18 attributes, these 18 qualities, the 8 freedoms, 10 endowments, bodhicitta. That's what to do with it, bodhicitta. Actually, like His Holiness says, conventional bodhicitta, ultimate bodhicitta. Conventional bodhicitta, that altruistic mind that cares more for others than oneself and strives for enlightenment for their sake, and ultimate bodhicitta, learning about and meditating on emptiness. Okay, so let's leave it there. Anyway, so let's dedicate all of the, merits, the good energy created this evening by this group, by us as a group, as well as all of the merits and all the good karma, virtue of the past, of oneself and others, also present in the future. That includes all of the Bodhisattvas, all of the Buddhas. I think it's nice to think, that when we think that we're going to create in the future, that means eventually, if we really want to, what we can do is gradually build up that mind of bodhicitta, become a bodhisattva, practice the bodhisattva path, and then, do those things which so amazing that Lama Tsongkhapa explains so much in his Bodhicharva, Lamrim Chammo, the Great Exposition of Sage Path. Those bodhisattvas whose, even you hear about bodhisattvas, amazing. Think about what they do with their lives, the way they practice. We're going to do that. So thinking about that and dedicating that, all of that to what? To the lasting peace and happiness of all sentient beings, which they will achieve by becoming free of samsara and achieving enlightenment, not just simple liberation, but enlightenment, best happiness, the best peace and joy. And so dedicating also to us, to ourselves, being able to achieve enlightenment in order to be able to lead them. And the long lives of our holy gurus like Dalai Lama, Gyaltsen Rinpoche, and to all of their holy wishes being fulfilled immediately, and then for the success of the FPMT as an organization, and especially within that Land of Medicine Buddha, to be able to overcome all obstacles, because the point of this center is only to serve others, serve all others. So to be able to overcome all obstacles, to be able to do that. Then also for our own family and friends and our success in our own practice. So I think oneself, the one who's dedicating, and we think I, there seems to be an I that has such solid existence, but actually, like everything which exists, everything is mere imputation by the mind, by the conceptual mind. The merit that or the virtue, the good energy we're dedicating, what we're dedicated to is also the same. And the action of dedication itself, likewise. Okay. Thank you, and see you next week. See you next Thursday, just before Christmas.